All right, here we go. Number 10, the big one. Ever wonder how many words are in a typical inaugural address? The following data represents the lengths of all of the inaugural addresses measured in word count for all presidents up to Barack Obama. So there we go, a big list. All right, the first thing it's asking us to do is determine the mean and the median number of words in the address here. I would never give you a question that has this many data values in it to do on a test. But what we would do here is we would plug all of this into the first column of the calculator. Then do the same thing, that one VAR stats. And then from that, we would get all of this stuff. So just to do it really quickly, I'm going to pause the video and plug it in. Because we're going to need it to, I guess, answer all these questions. Now that I think about it, I kind of want to do it in StatCrunch instead. All right, I'm going to do this one in StatCrunch instead of in the calculator. I don't know if any of you have been using StatCrunch. I kind of hope so, because it is useful. But let me pull it all up. So let me pull up StatCrunch for this question. All right, here we go. All right, so you are allowed to use StatCrunch on your test as well. In fact, I think a lot of the questions, if you just hit the little drop-down box, it even uploads the table into StatCrunch for you. So here it has all the presidential inaugural addresses, the links in the first column. Remember, the first question here was asking us to find the mean and the median. So this is something that you can do in StatCrunch. If you go into Stat and then Summarize Stat, and you want to summarize the column, choose the column you want to summarize. Of course, we only have the one. And then here you want to choose the things that you want to find. I want the mean. And if you hold down Control and select the median, it highlights both of those. If you don't hold down Control, it only highlights one at a time. So hold down Control and then select the two things that you need, and we'll just hit Compute. And then there you go. We get it pretty fast. So our mean, these are all whole numbers. So I'm going to round this to one decimal point, 2,354.9, median 2,137. So let me go into OneNote here. I'll make a new page, and we'll write out all our answers here. So this was number 10 on the chapter review, the big one. Part A, we had a mean. This is a population mean, right? Because that is the entire population of presidents and their inaugural addresses. This had the mean of 2,354.9 words and a median. My U and my M looks almost the same. Median of 2,137. Okay, next question. Part B. B, determine and interpret the quartiles for the number of words in a president inaugural address. Anytime it's asking you to find quartiles, it's talking about the Q1 and the Q3. So again, we're going to summarize the stat and the columns, choose the column you want to summarize, and then the quartiles are down here. The quartiles are also in that one VAR stats option in your calculator. So you can find those very easy in the calculator as well. Sorry, wrong thing. So again, part B was just asking us to find the quartiles. And when it says find the quartiles, it's talking about Q1 and Q3. Q1, 1,425. Q3, 2,906. Now the question was also asking us to interpret these quartiles. What that means is just to say a little sentence about what that represents here. So the quartiles are the cutoffs for the bottom 25% and then the top 25%. So if my Q1 is 1,425, we could make a statement of 25% of presidents had inaugural addresses that had less than 1,425 words. Same thing for Q3, just the other way around. 25% of presidents had inaugural addresses more than 2,906 words. All right, let's look at the next one, part C. So C is up here. Determine the 5-number summary for the number of words in a president inaugural address. And let me go back down to here. So what I want to do here is let me go and just show you this menu in the calculator because it's very nice. So if I do, this is not the same information that we have, right? This is just other numbers that I used before. But just to show you as an example, if I were to scroll down to the bottom of the screen, the last 5 numbers that they give you is the 5-number summary. The minimum value, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and then the maximum value. All you have to do is write down those 5 numbers in a row for the 5-number summary. So let me go back into StatCrunch here, and let's get a summary stat that has all of that information for my 5-number summary. So we needed, not the mean, but the median. So we need the median, we need the minimum, the maximum, the Q1, and the Q3 here. Oops, I just zoomed out a little bit. Oh, I forgot to select the column. Select the column. Okay, great. Let me zoom back in some. And then that's it. So that is going to be the 5-number summary here. So for part C of this question, finding the 5-number summary. The 5-number summary is the minimum value. It's in the wrong order, sorry. So the minimum value, 135. Somebody was very short-spoken. Q1, the median, Q3, and then the maximum value. And then that's it. No commas, no punctuation, no nothing. Just 5 numbers in a row. 135, 1425, 2137, 2906, 8445. The point of this is to, again, break down your data into 25% chunks. 25% of speakers were in between the first 2, the next 25% in between the next 2, the next 25%, and then the final 25%. So it just breaks it down into these chunks. All right, let's look at what question D is asking. D, determine the standard deviation and the interquartile range for the number of words in a presidential address. Okay, let me go back to the thing here. So summary stats, one thing that we haven't found yet is the standard deviation. Now with StatCrunch, you have to be careful. It doesn't say whether this is the sample or the population standard deviation. But if it just says standard deviation, it's talking about the sample standard deviation. What we have is a population, which means that this standard deviation isn't going to be the one that we want. We actually want this one, the unadjusted standard deviation. This is the population one in StatCrunch. All right, cool. So that's it. That's going to be our answer there for the population standard deviation, which is the sigma 1381, and again rounding that to 2 decimal places. Another thing that it asked us in part D here was to find the interquartile range, which we label as the IQR. There is a formula for the IQR. It's just the third quartile minus the first quartile. So if I go back up to part B where I found the quartiles, it's going to be the third quartile 2906 minus the first quartile 1425. You can just subtract those in the calculator to get an answer here. So let me just, I'm using my handheld calculator. 1481. So that's going to be the interquartile range for this question. Okay, back to part E. Are there any outliers in the data set? If so, what are they? Okay, so let's look at outliers. Again, outliers, there are formulas for. This is not something the calculator can do for you necessarily. It can, but I think it's easier just to do it by hand. To find outliers, you have to find what we call the lower fence and then the upper fence. The formula for the lower fence is Q1 minus 1.5 of the IQR. Let me just check to see if I'm still recording here. My numbers went away, which scares me. I think... Yeah, okay, we're good. Whew. Okay, so for the lower fence here, the Q1, that was the 1425, minus 1.5 of the IQR, which is the 1481. So we can just type that again. I'll use my handheld calculator here. I'm pretty sure we're going to get a negative number. We do. Negative 7096.5. That's fine. The upper fence. The upper fence is the third quartile plus 1.5 of the IQR. The third quartile was 2906 plus 1.5 of that 1481. So let's see what that is. That is 5,127.5. Now what we want to do is we want to go back to our data and see if there's anything below the lower fence, which is impossible because it's negative, or above the upper fence, and that may be possible. So if I go back to my data here, it looks like I do have some outliers. I have an 8,445, which is bigger. I have a 5,433, which is bigger. Those are the only two that I see. So yeah, we have two outliers. It was the 8,445 and the 5,433. Cool. So they are outliers because they are outside the lower fence or the upper fence. A really interesting story about this one, the 8,445. He did this in in the rain, in the cold, and he ended up getting pneumonia and dying a month into his pregnancy. You can look it up. Stubborn and fool, trying to talk too long. That's what he gets. No, that's mean. He was a president. I shouldn't say that. Okay, moving on. F, draw a box plot of the data. So we have everything we need now to pretty much draw the box plot. With the box plot, first you draw the number line at the bottom. We have data values ranging from 0 all the way up to about 9,000-ish. This is going to be a really rough sketch of a box plot here. The box itself we can get from the 5-number summary. So the box is these middle three terms, the Q1, the median, and the Q3. So 14, 25, 21, and 29-ish. So they're like way down here. 14 something, whatever, that's our box. So this was the Q1, the median, the Q3. The whiskers are going to go to the furthest data value that is not an outlier. So my left whisker is just going to go to my minimum point, 135. So it just goes pretty much down to 0. We're pretty close to it. But my right whisker is going to go to the biggest data value that is not an outlier. And that's kind of a problem, right? Because remember, the 5,433 and the 8,445 were outliers. The next highest one, 4,776 maybe? I think so. So it would go to 4,776, wherever that is, and then we would have an outlier at the 4,000 something, the 5,000 something, sorry, that would be an asterisk there, and then an outlier at the 8,445, another asterisk there. All right, so I know that was a really terrible box plot, but that's the gist of it. Your box is at the Q1, the median, and the Q3. Your whiskers go to the furthest data values that are still inside the fence. Let's see what else this question's asking. Describe the shape of the distribution. If I drew my box plot better, we'd be able to do the shape. I will show you that StatCrunch can do the box plot. So in StatCrunch here, if I go to Graph, Box Plot, choose the box plot option, and then Graph. I don't know why it graphs it vertical. I should have known better. You can make it horizontal. So we want our box horizontal instead. Great. So just looking at it, maybe stretch it out some. Maybe you could argue it is right skewed because the tail to the right is slightly longer to the tail to the left. But this is so close that I would just say that this is symmetric. So probably a bell curve here. Okay. Oh, we can really check to see if it's a bell curve by graphing the histogram. So let's just look at the histogram real quick. There we go. Yeah, so this is what I was saying. Like it's slightly right skewed. You could probably argue that it's right skewed if you really wanted to. The reason it looks so right skewed is because of those two outliers. But if it wasn't for these two outliers, it would be very close to a bell curve. So I would be okay with either one for that question. All right, so that's the shape. H, which measure of central tendency do you think better describes the typical number of words? So here we have to be a little bit careful. I initially said bell curve, so I'm going to stick with bell curve for my shape. And if I am going to say bell curve, the mean is the better measure of central tendency. If you said skewed, then you would say the median is the better measure. The question is also asking which measure of dispersion do you think is better? Again, because this is a bell curve, we would say that the standard deviation is the better measure of dispersion. If it was skewed, then you would say the IQR is the better measure of dispersion. Okay, so I know that was a lot for just that one question. That video is probably a little bit too long, but that's it for my little Chapter 3 review. That covered pretty much everything that's going to be on this Chapter 3 test. If you have any questions, of course, you can always email me or they have the tutoring there in the ASC. But I'm here to help, right? So I hope this video helps. Let me know if it does. So if you like these things, I can make more of them. If you don't think this was helpful at all, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Just let me know.